Russia's army is getting smaller, while Ukrainian strikes in the Russian hinterland are becoming increasingly painful. This month as well, the Russian army will lose more soldiers than it was able to recruit. And while Ukrainian drone attacks are striking deeper and more frequently in Russia, hitting not only oil but also ships and aircraft again, Russia's military bloggers are frustrated. They are asking themselves how to get out of the current situation. While one of the most prominent Russian military bloggers is proposing a major new mobilization, another influential Russian military blogger says that even 5 million mobilized troops would be pointless. All of this in this video. Holy moly, now save the most at Holy with my code. While the Russian long-range attacks continue, for example during the night of the 25th April, with 666 missiles and drones they have reached a large scale and are maintaining it, it has long since stopped being one-sided. The fourth attack this month, with over 500 missiles and drones, resulted in Ukraine being able to intercept only 33 out of 47 missiles, and only 580 out of 619 drones. However, Ukraine has struck back at targets up to 1,700 kilometers away from the border. In Yekaterinburg, a residential building was hit. Something else was probably the target there, because you wouldn't need to fly 1,700 kilometers just to hit a residential building. In Chelyabinsk, a metallurgical plant was hit, and Sasha Kotz now says that air defense in the Urals needs to be strengthened because of this. The influential Russian military blogger Sasha Kotz. However, Russia is having increasing problems even coming close to meeting its need for air defense. We recently addressed this in this video here. In addition, the refinery in Yaroslavl was hit. This also shows once again that the Ukrainians continue to focus on the Russian oil industry, and how extensive the damage is can be seen in these satellite images of Tuops. Ukrainian attacks took place there and caused really severe damage to the oil facilities.
Angerichtet.
At the same time, one of the largest drone attacks of the war took place on Sevastopol. The governor reported that 71 drones were shot down, which means the attack involved significantly more drones than those that were shot down. Because Ukraine reports that they hit 2 landing ships, a reconnaissance ship, a training center, the Air Defense Signals Intelligence Headquarters, a MISM-1 radar, and a MiG-31. The MiG-31OS are the fastest Russian fighter jets and are used to launch the Kinzhal missiles. Meanwhile, images of this have also been published, which we can see here. Here, you can see the MiG-31. Here, we have the ships at the different positions. We can see how the Ukrainian side is also demonstrating that they have hit their targets. The Russian Milblogger 2 Majors is very frustrated about this situation. He specifically addresses the ongoing attacks and their effects in this post. For a week now, the air raid alarm seems to never stop. The civilian population, especially parents with small children, do not dare to go more than a few dozen meters from their front door, in case they need to take shelter from drones in an emergency. It has become normal for enemy drones to crash onto inhabited streets and residential buildings. The city is holding out, but among the population, a depressive mood is spreading in view of the hopeless situation. So while the population is looking at the situation with increasing depression, the Milblogger also has nothing good to say about the Russian Black Sea Fleet, which is actually supposed to be the pride of the Russian naval forces. In this context, the problem of defending Sevastopol, as well as other coastal cities, lies in repelling attacks directly on the outskirts of the city. A breakthrough of this defensive line would allow the enemy to advance into the vast areas above the city. That means the defense is already taking place at the last line of defense. A preventive and effective means of protecting Crimea should be the ships of the Black Sea Fleet, which call themselves the symbol of Sevastopol, which should be converted into maritime air defense platforms and equipped with all possible means to destroy aerial and sea drones as well as missiles, and should shoot down all this junk dozens of kilometers off the coast. But since the summer of 2022, when drones were first used over Crimea, not a single effective measure has been taken, and the ships themselves are hidden in reserve naval bases, where they also continue to come under enemy fire. So instead of facing the enemy, the Russian Black Sea Fleet hides in the ports, without even being safe there. Of course, he points out that the drones must be engaged and intercepted as far away from the target as possible. I recently made a video exactly about this, about one of the means to shoot down drones in advance. Because, of course, you want to address them as early as possible and carry out the attacks so that they can't break through. And above all, to have more opportunities to shoot them down. Because the earlier you carry out the first attack, the more time you have for a second and a third attack. Shot down debris then falls into open land or the sea and doesn't crash into the city itself. By the way, Ukraine has recently started doing this by launching its interceptor drones from sea drones, in order to do exactly that. For example, to begin intercepting Shahed drones over the Black Sea during attacks on Odessa. So instead of confronting the enemy, the Black Sea Fleet hides, and when the Russians do try something, like copying the concept of mobile fire teams from the Ukrainians, it often ends very badly. So here we have footage showing that the Ukrainians are now hunting these air defense teams. The Russians have now adopted the tactic from the Ukrainians, where there are small teams with vehicles that shoot at drones. Here we see footage from the Ukrainians targeting these teams. In this case, the teams that are taken out are not only unavailable, but the existing teams are also intimidated by this and become less effective. It's relatively easy for the Ukrainians to carry out these attacks themselves, because as we can see here in the footage, the teams are easy to spot thanks to the muzzle flashes, the tracer ammunition, and the searchlights that we can see here. This, of course, makes it easy for the Ukrainians to target these air defense units with remote-controlled drones. This sustainably weakens the air defense, and it also makes reinforcing the air defense less effective. Good planning of airstrikes by the Ukrainians also helps. And here, the Ukrainians have become increasingly better at carrying out the planning of the attacks themselves. Do you know what you need for planning? Good pens. It's especially helpful if these are presented so impressively that everyone who comes into the office is struck with awe and admiration, just like a Russian Milblogger freezes when Ukrainian drones are in the air. Today's sponsor can help with that. Before we begin, I want to quickly show you something that has been on my desk for some time and really stands out right away. This is the Hover Pen Interstellar from Novium. What's special about it is that this pen is made from aircraft-grade aluminum and floats on its base through magnetic levitation, without any electricity. And that's exactly why it's not just a writing instrument, but more like a small design object for the desk. I spend a lot of time at my desk, and that's exactly why I like things that are functional, but also aesthetically pleasing. The Hover Pen is exactly that kind of item. It immediately catches the eye, moves on its base, and almost everyone who sees it first asks what it actually is. However, it's especially good as a gift. Most of us know that. Not everyone has the patience and talent to find thoughtful gifts, but here, you're giving something that's truly amazing. The pen is an absolute eye-catcher at the workplace, and also practical. After all, everyone needs pens. The fact that you can personalize the pen, for example, with a name, initials, or a date, makes it an especially easy gift for the buyer and a valuable one for the recipient. The pen is available in 4 different colors and can even be purchased with a meteorite fragment in the tip. The Hover Pen Interstellar is the central model, meaning the version with the characteristic floating presentation. In addition, there is also a version called the Hover Pen Future, which can be used as a fountain pen or rollerball with different tips. If you want to check it out, you can get a 15% discount with my code MILITARE in the first 72 hours after this video is released. After that, it's 10%. There is also free shipping in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and most European countries. You can also see the code displayed, as well as the QR code. You can find the link in the description. And honestly, if you're looking for a gift that doesn't feel generic for once, or if you want to upgrade your own desk a bit, then this is definitely an unusual piece. The founder of Reba says that the military believes another mobilization is now necessary. He says it's less due to a lack of personnel, as he mentioned in an interview, and more because of low cohesion among the units. He says that recruitment is proceeding according to plan, but 80% of the losses in 2025 occurred among volunteers and contract soldiers who were deployed in small assault teams without much prior planning. Solving this requires new units that are well coordinated with each other. So, in plain terms, the idea is to create a completely new unit. Fill it entirely with mobilized soldiers. Let them train together until they are closely coordinated and then deploy them as a whole. But that would require recruiting a large number of people, which realistically can only be done through mobilization. Mikhail Svinchuk, that's the name, may claim here that there are lines in front of the recruitment offices and that mobilization isn't necessary because of the sheer numbers. However, he is closely connected to the Ministry of Defense. His statements must therefore be critically evaluated, since it is certainly not in the interest of the Russian state, through one of the most influential sources on the war in Russia, that they have too few soldiers. Rather, the aim is likely to prepare the public for the next mobilization. The fact is that other Russian Milbloggers themselves show that recruitment can no longer keep up with the losses. As I said, we addressed this in yesterday's video, where I quoted Russian Milbloggers who show how much the Russian armed forces are now tapping into their last reserves of personnel. Both trained armored troops and engineers are being sent as infantrymen in frontal assaults, so their valuable training is being completely wasted. But what would a mobilization actually achieve? The Milblogger fighter bomber, who is associated with the Russian Air Forces, writes, "I can understand those who are calling for mobilization and have themselves signed a contract and forced all their relatives of conscription age to sign it as well." We can already hear a bit of defeatism here, in the sense that one should only talk about mobilization if they have signed up themselves, have already volunteered, and have practically sent all their acquaintances and friends to the military as well. Continuing with the quote, "I can understand those who propose mobilization as an attempt to change something at the front, since there are no other clear, understandable, and effective means that they can offer." Here, too, it shows the despair or resignation that nothing is moving forward at the front. Continuing with the quote, "In all other cases, one immediately wants to ask, let's assume that 5 million citizens are mobilized, of course mostly by force, through border closures, measures similar to those of the T2K, and so on." I suspect this is referring to the partial mobilization in September 2022. I'm not entirely sure what is meant by T2K. Here in English, we translated it as TCC. Continuing with the quote, "And there's only a 1% chance that in a year, we won't have 500 more square kilometers of land, but instead, 5 million fewer citizens. And isn't there only a 1% chance that we don't have 500 more square kilometers, but instead, 5 million fewer citizens?" And you really have to let that sink in. Not only is he a supporter of the Russian armed forces, he's also highly skeptical about the mobilization. He doubts that it will achieve anything at all. And even 500 more square kilometers would be shockingly little for the Russians. That's only about 10% of the territory that Ukraine still holds in Donetsk alone. In short, the Russian Milbloggers, who have been following the war since it began and have always taken a pro-war stance, are becoming increasingly desperate. On the one hand, Ukraine's attacks in the Russian hinterland are penetrating deeper and deeper into Russia, while at the same time, the Ukrainian attacks are becoming increasingly painful and successful. On the other hand, there is simply no progress at the front anymore, and the recruitment of soldiers is no longer enough to change that. For Ukraine, the danger is by no means over. That also needs to be understood. Ukraine also has countless problems. But the problems on the Russian side are so big that the Russian Milbloggers can no longer ignore or sugarcoat them. Once again, a reminder. With my code, Militär und Geschichte mit Thorsten Heinrich, you get a 15% discount at Novium for 72 hours. And after that, 10% upart. The link is in the description and the QR code is displayed. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you're new, subscribe and click the bell to get notified of future videos. That's all from my side for now. Thank you very much for your attention and see you soon. Thanks also to the supporters on Patreon, as well as here on YouTube. I would especially like to thank Lieutenant Colonel Mahamuri and Lieutenant's Betainment, Robert Veal, Lichtchettere, Anti-X, Meersman, Malermeister Nagel, Markus P., Alex Rosenthal, Madbest, Vision, Soundlab, Sickwriter, Silvio Ströver, Mütter 1000 Janiscu, Sascha Müller, Cunningham, Eustress, Shadow, Jans vom Eck, Uwe die Frem, nickname 2BP, Carsten Schulz, Tequila 42. Thank you very much. Without you, this would not be possible.